Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Riva Levinson. I'm the CEO of KRL International. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I have the privilege of moderating this one-hour conversation on building the digital and financial backbone for people-to-people trade along the Libido corridor and ahead of the Luanda Financial Summit next month in Luanda. As most of you know, the Libido corridor includes the Libido Atlantic Railway, which is a rehabilitation of 1,300 kilometers of the Benguela line, which connects the port of Lobito in Angola to Luau in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And the second part of the Libido corridor is the African Finance Corporation's consortium to develop the 830-kilometer railway that will connect Zambia and Greenfield to the Benguela line in Lucano, Angola. And then it goes from the Zambia railways to Chingola, Zambia. The Libido model of private sector development and utilizing the convening power of the United States and other allies is to address the barriers to infrastructure development and completion. And as Lisa knows, Lisa Cope, who will speak to the US government, it's also been brought into the Regional Economic Integration Framework, which underpins the negotiations for peace between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. And we're looking as well in these conversations about the extension of the infrastructure, including into Kolwezi in the DRC. I wanted to say that the movement of critical minerals may be the economic engine and the incentive structure that gets everyone in play. But what truly underpins a lasting peace, whether it's in Angola, Zambia, the DRC, Rwanda, across the continent, is ensuring that these economic corridors deliver for the people of these countries, creating jobs, building local businesses, simplifying cross-border trade, and breaking the barriers to financial inclusion. So that's what this seminar is about. We have two purposes. One is to get as much participation as possible to Angola to come to the summit, but the other is to supercharge this conversation about connectivity, financial inclusion, about making sure that this conversation underpins and moves, because we don't need a rail infrastructure for connectivity. We just need regulatory agreement and the ability to move with the innovation. So I'm gonna pause here. I'm gonna turn it first over to Ambassador Sharif. Ambassador, I'd like you to make your remarks first, and then I'll go back and recognize the VIPs and other people who are in the audience. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Riva. Good morning and good afternoon, distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sharif Al-Bidawi. I'm CEO of MMP, and I'll be addressing you this afternoon. It is an honor to be with you today as we look ahead to one of the most exciting opportunities for Africa's economic transformation, the Lobito Corridor. We meet at a pivotal moment. Across our continent, there is renewed determination to move from vision to reality and from potential to prosperity. The Lobito Corridor embodies this ambition. It's not just a transport route, but rather a strategic platform for investment, industrialization, regional integration. At MMP, this conversation is not theoretical. It is at the heart of our mission. Since our founding in 2015, we worked across Middle East and Africa to help governments, businesses, and international organizations navigate complexity and forge meaningful partnerships. with offices in Cairo, Johannesburg, Istanbul, and Dubai, and a presence in over 40 markets. We had the privilege of supporting global leaders such as Google, Meta, MasterCard, TikTok, Johnson & Johnson, and today we bring the same expertise to advancing Africa's industrial and digital future. The Lobito Corridor is far more than just a railway line. It's a gateway connecting Africa's Atlantic coast with the heart of the continent. Its potential is immense in order to facilitate trade, enable energy flows, and bring people and markets closer together. But more than that, it can unlock opportunities that extend for beyond traditional trade. Our vision is clear. The corridor must not simply export raw materials. It must be a driver of value addition and sustainable industrialization here in Africa. And this by linking resource-rich regions with ports, power grids, and industrial hubs, we can stimulate manufacturing, create competitive industries, and generate dignified jobs for our younger generations. The corridor will also act as a magnet for investment across multiple sectors: infrastructure, logistics, agribusiness, renewable energy, and digital connectivity. But these investments must be sustainable, inclusive, and future-focused, aligned with Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Industrialization in the 21st century cannot repeat the same mistakes of the past. It must be cleaner, greener, and fairer. That's why MMP champions low carbon technology, stronger regional value chains, and investment in local skills. In this way, the corridor benefits will be widely shared, especially among women and people of the younger generations.
Thank you so much, Ambassador.
I just have, give me just one more minute, please.
Okay, I have promised the 53 people on here, 74, that I'm keeping time.
Less than a minute.
So just so you know.
I would like to highlight the Luanda Finance Summit in 2025 and we, MMP, as a strategic partner of Agency-NEPAD, is honored to co-organize a flagship session on the 30th of October in Luanda, entitling Unblocking Trade Potential Across the Lobito, Overcoming Barriers, Building Opportunity. And we wish to invite you as panel speakers to participate in this panel, bringing your insights and expertise. We will also, in addition to that, be preparing for an exclusive high-level ICT investment dinner on the 29th of October under the esteemed patronage of the First Lady of Angola, in collaboration with the Ministry of Telecommunication and Information in Angola. And we envision this as a landmark occasion. We invite you to participate, and this will be a catalyzer for this project of the Lobito Corridor. Thank you very much, and thank you for the time.
No, absolutely. I think we're gonna speak to Dr. Mustafa Sakar, who's the Principal Program Officer of AUDA and NEPAD, to talk a bit about the ambition of what NEPAD is trying to achieve as a driver for investment, not only in Lobito corridor, but in the other corridors that are identified, and also towards the program in Luanda. Dr. Sakar, I would ask if you could keep to 3, maybe 4 minutes, because also once you're done, I'm also going to identify there's a dozen people or so very senior who are on this call. I want to self-identify and also hope we have the Q&A to continue. So over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Riva, program moderator. It's my honor to be part of this high-level discussion. First and foremost, I would like to, on behalf of Her Excellency Mrs. Nardos Bekele Thomas, Chief Executive Officer of the African Union Development Agency, AUDA-NEPAD, to welcome all our distinguished participants and panelists in this webinar. Today's dialogue has perfectly captured by Riva sets the stage not only for our special event scheduled later in October, but for the broader Luanda Financing Summit at large. In that sense, I would like to warmly acknowledge our co-organizers, Moharram Partners and KRL International, and also extend my sincere gratitude to our distinguished panelists and partners for their unwavering support in making our webinar today a success. Thank you very much indeed. Distinguished participants, cognizant of the very short time allocated by our program moderator, I will try to be concise to what is expected and what is ambition of this webinar. The theme of the Luanda Summit, Capital Corridor Trade, investing in infrastructure for the ACFT and shared prosperity, gives us a clear direction. Our challenge is not simply to trace a corridor on a map, but to transform it into a vehicle for accelerated regional integration and inclusive, sustainable, and transformative growth. So simply speaking, not to leave anyone behind. Also, it's important to note that the right direction is to ensure that the quality infrastructure, including above all digital connectivity, financial interoperability, and cross-border market integration, will ensure that not only goods, but also data and payments flow with equal speed, certainty, and transparency. Only then the Lobito corridor stand as a living proof of concept of the ACFTA, which refers to the Continental Free Trade Area, and also as a flagship for Africa's program for accelerated industrialization, currently led by Luanda in collaboration with relevant stakeholders. Distinguished participants, let us seize our dialogue today to bridge the gap between ambition and action, so that when we gather in Luanda, we shouldn't be speaking anymore of what should be done. Instead, we need to be firmly showcasing our commitments, presenting bankable projects, and also demonstrating the real value that is already flowing seamlessly across the Lobito corridor. Yet to reach that milestone, we must be courage enough to confront the harsh realities. We must be bold enough to acknowledge the stumbling blocks preventing the progress we are all looking for. And definitely, we must be decisive enough to put forward clear, actionable policies that our heads of state and governments can endorse and champion in Luanda. Only then the Luanda Finance Summit will rise above vision statements to become a turning point where Africa and its strategic partners, I mean primarily the private sector within from Africa and from the across the globe, speak with one voice, act with one resolve, and definitely deliver a corridor that truly transformative, inclusive, and sustainable. Distinguished participants, on behalf of Luanda and the co-organizers of the Luanda Finance Summit, I wish to assure you that your insights, together with the voices of the broader private sector, will be given due consideration. They will play a pivotal role in enriching policy dialogues during the summit, strengthening public-private collaboration, and definitely advancing our shared vision of a Lobito corridor that is more competitive, sustainable, and inclusive. In a nutshell, today's engagement marks the start of a significant long journey. As Winston Churchill once said, now this is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it perhaps the end of the beginning. In closing, let me confirm that NEPAD is unwavering commitment to work hand in hand with you and with all our stakeholders to ensure that Luanda Summit becomes a true catalyst for a prosperous, equitable, and resilient Africa, fully aligned with Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. I submit, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I'm going to applaud because they were very powerful remarks. I think they set the stage, and from what I had said earlier, it's not just about ambition of minerals and moving. It's about the transformative capacity of these corridors to deliver for the people. I think that's what the conversation is about. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Ko of U.S. Trade and Development Agency to give a bit of the U.S. government perspective. She has the great point of timing that her colleague is in Angola right now looking at these very opportunities. And so I think the timing of this as well. So Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you. And then before I get to Mr. Sabasi and Alloy, I'm going to also ID our VIP guests because we're going to want them to be acknowledged and possibly intervene with questions and statements after. So Lisa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Riva. It's such an honor to be here to speak with everyone today and to be such a to be a part of such an excellent and esteemed panel. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to speak about the U.S. government and then also my specific agency, which is called the U.S. Trade and Development Agency. The U.S. Trade and Development Agency, or also known as USTDA, funds early stage project support for large-scale infrastructure where there's an opportunity to bring in U.S. companies, U.S. interests, and U.S. engagement. But we work with African partners, both the public and the private sector. And as Riva was mentioning, work in the libido corridor is, imperative to us because we see this as a driver and strategically important for the U.S. interests, and also U.S. companies. And so this is an area where we're engaging and we're collaborating with other U.S. government agencies that you may have worked with in the past, including the U.S. Export-Import Bank and the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, as well as others. So we all are working together and collaborating to promote and move forward key strategic projects. And for us, our focus within the U.S. Trade and Development Agency is on supporting projects that relate to really a few key pillars. So critical minerals being one, an area that's a huge focus for us. Transportation and transportation links, including rail, ports, as well as aviation. The energy sector and supporting really in all of the above energy approach, as well as digital infrastructure, which is actually where I spend the most of my time, is working on digital infrastructure projects. So we've supported a number of projects looking at fiber optic backbones for the most part across the continent, but also in the libido corridor. And I think what's interesting about what's incredibly important about this topic is that regional connectivity is just essential for growth. And this is something that we've seen through our experience. And that's why, as Riva mentioned at the top, I have colleagues right now who are actually in Kinshasa looking for projects, looking for regional connectivity projects. We'll be going to Angola in the coming weeks as well. And just across the region, we have offices in the region because although I'm based in Washington, D.C., it's very important for us to have that presence and be focused on, how can we be supporting regional economic engagement. And really connectivity is really the foundation of all of that. So I look forward to the discussion today. For me, I'm really interested in the business development aspects, and if there are any key projects, I'd be happy to follow up with anyone individually, but delighted to be here for the conversation. Thank you.
Hey, Lisa, real quick, not to put you on the spot, but do you want to say anything about the conversation along the regional economic integration framework and how the infrastructure is kind of underlying the discussion of peace between Rwanda, DRC, and also connecting back to libido? I know that's not your total space, but it is your policy space.
Yeah, thank you, Riva. Yes, of course, the U.S. Department of State and others within the White House are leading on this. So at my agency, we tend to focus on the transactions that can help, move forward the REEF and its agenda. But I know there's a lot in terms of, the document that have been put out publicly. I think what I appreciate is the focus on direction. It's been noted. Also, you can find this on the State Department's website. There's a statement of tenets for the regional economic integration framework, and the importance to focus on energy, infrastructure, mineral supply chains, national park management, tourism, public health, et cetera. And I think what's helpful about this conversation is that digital connectivity, ICT infrastructure is really, again, the foundation of infrastructure. And so an area of focus where I'll be able to work on the transaction side.
I just wanted Lisa to mention that I'm not a U.S. government official, just in Washington, D.C., but just the point to emphasize is that this administration, the Trump administration, has openly supported the Libido corridor and has directed to build it both with respect to the Greenfield and the Libido Atlantic Railway, and also in the Regional Economic Integration Framework. It talks about the Libido model and extending that type of acceleration of economic project development to Rwanda and the DRC. So again, just saying that the corridor is a proof of concept that we're hoping to replicate. I'm going to turn it now over to Bosco Sababi, who is the Deputy CEO of the Pan-African Payment Settlement System. And when we're talking about the ability to have financial inclusion and connectivity, the ability to move money across borders, I think PAPS is really playing a leading role there. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Bosco, for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then over.
Thank you very much, Riva, and thank you very much for the invitation to be able to participate in this very important session, because this opens up to many corridors in Africa that we do. So let me just take a step back to get to what infrastructure means for Africa and what kind of advances or steps have been taken elsewhere. Then we can come now to that Libido corridor. So we have always talked about infrastructure as a hindrance to trade, physical infrastructure. We talk about roads, talk about railways, airports, everything else. However, there's one missed out point normally. This is the soft infrastructure. The first infrastructure we'll talk about is payments, connectivity, digitalization of services, and everything around that cross-border business. So we always concentrate on the tariff barriers and mention them as hindering trade. But then these soft infrastructure like payments do affect what people do, what people can do across. So at PAPS, we have done a study and realized that actually trade flows where payments can flow easily. Because the most important, maybe I'll quote the economists of about so many months ago, they did quote that the most important economic activity one does is a payment, either human being or an entity. So that means either we are paying or we are buying. And now not buying within the country, but also cross-border. So the role of payments, financial inclusion is very important in terms of cross-border trade. I will give an example whereby between 2 African countries, a payment takes about 10 days. And between Europe or America and an African country, takes maybe 2 to 3 days. And within Africa itself is beyond. Sometimes the payment can even get lost. So this is something that we need to look at very well. In terms of digitalization and financial inclusion in Africa, we've seen that we have one aspect that has taken off very well. This is mobile money. Mobile money in Africa has grown leaps and bounds more than anywhere in the world, just because we don't have the infrastructure for ATMs, points of sale everywhere in Africa, in every country. So the mobile is what has penetrated most of Africa, and this is what we can ride on to be able to effect payments and ensure financial inclusion.
So I'd ask, give you 1 minute warning, and then Aloy's going to come on the back, so the conversation on mobile money is point on. Over.
So now, the other thing we can touch on is the regulatory barriers. Well, you have the regulatory barriers as a hindrance to most of these things. So what is PAPS and what's PAPS doing about this is bring all this together and be able to underpin the whole SFTA vision and dream. So maybe I can stop there for now, and then we can deep dive into each of those 4 aspects as I mentioned above.
Yeah, sorry. I promised the people I'm going to be brutal on time. No, we'll come back on questions. Dr. Chife, Alloy, I'm gonna set up this conversation again, have 3 minutes, and then I'm gonna go backwards and identify our VIP. So I totally missed protocol, but people will bear with me. Dr. Alloy Chife is the chairman of Bridge FinTech. And he's going to be speaking on the back of Bosco, because what Bridge, a U.S. company, has figured out is how to create the interoperability of mobile money across borders without having to go, as Bosco said, through 3 or 5 days, or through Forex back and forth, or through having to carry currency. And as we see now, even in the DRC and Rwanda, currency that expires and is no longer operable. And so what Alloy is going to talk about is what the company has just tested between Ghana and Nigeria in terms of the interoperability of mobile money with MTN, and what that implies for the vision that Bosco spoke about, and even in terms of the peace between Rwanda and DRC. Hey, Alloy, 3 minutes and keeping time.
Right. Good. Thank you, Riva, and thank you, everyone, distinguished participants and fellow panelists. I hear here. I mean, it's very exciting to hear this, to be part of this conversation, and I feel quite privileged. And the conversation is centered around cross-border integration for Africa, prosperity, peace, and development. As Bosco said, there's an essential part of it that we must consider. Africa is mobile. That essential piece is how. How do we do this? Brilliant idea. Everyone has talked about integration. Everyone has talked about interoperability. Africa is mobile. There are about 1.2 billion mobile wallets in Africa, which is about 2/3 of the global total. What Bridge has invented, innovated, it's a mechanism to allow Africans to transact with each other using their local currencies, in addition, obviously, to the US dollar. And we do that by facilitating mobile-to-mobile interoperability. And that process, that innovation we've invented, it's called BridgeX. It's an exchange where Africans can exchange their local currencies, can swap their local currencies for the other, fund their wallets, and be able to make transactions across borders. So if you are going from Angola to Zambia to DRC, you can, given that the Africa is mobile, you can easily travel from one country to the other with your mobile phone and pay in your local currencies without need to exchange to any foreign currency. And that is the whole point of BridgeX. We believe that this, and we work with PAPS, Bridge works with PAPS to make this
Alloy,
available
1 minute
across
warning.
countries.
1 minute warning.
We work with PAPS to make this available across countries. So we believe that this is a very important development, a very important innovation to facilitate transactions across the Lobito corridor. Riva, over to you.
Thank you for respecting the clock. I just wanted to give one example of what Bridge is speaking to and how it interacts, Dr. Sakar, with what you said, and also what Lisa and Bosco mentioned is there's an effort now to see if it's possible to look at the interoperability of mobile money between the Congolese franc and the Rwanda franc as part of a discussion that would be within the regional economic integration framework, part of the people-to-people conversation. And so again, that's just one example of the ability of people to communicate if the regulatory barriers are opened. And Dr. Sakar, when you talk about Luanda, I think that's one of the key issues about the loosening or the ability to passport, what we say in terms of licenses and applications across border to deliver. And so I think that's going to be part of the conversation. Aloy and everyone, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to protocol and identify the people who were supposed to be identified up front and ask them if they, and again, I'm going to invite them to unmute their mics, and anyone who, if they could jump in, and then we'll take the questions. So I have Ambassador Abu Bakr Mahmoud, who's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration, and Egypt Abroad. Are you here? If not, I'm just going to keep going. We have Admasu Tedesse, who is President and Managing Director of the Trade and Development Bank Group. I know him well. We have Brian Miller, Foreign Service Officer, U.S. Embassy in Angola. Tarek Ben Youssef, Deputy Chief of Mission, African Union Mission to the U.S. Ashraf Ibrahim, Ambassador. Bankole Falade, Chief Regulatory Officer of Flutterwave. Flutterwave, another remarkable innovator across the continent. We have Usaro Anthony, Executive Director of Momo Payment Service Bank in Nigeria, one of the innovators, or the first innovators on the interoperability of mobile money, and also a partner with Bridge. We have Joseph Caruso, CEO of IIB Group, Cabo Verde. Elizabeth Blacklin, former principal ICT advisor of Prosper Africa, who helped set up Tech for Trade, which we're kind of now doing, Lisa, in our own way. And Gabby Ocheri Darko, founder and executive chairman, Africa Prosperity Network. My colleague Habiba has the rules, but I would invite any of those people, please, who have name have been called out, if they would like to just self-identify and say a few words, because with respect, these people should have been part of our panel as well. There just wasn't enough time or space, but there'll be other opportunities. I don't see. Mustafa, please.
Hi, Riva. This is Habiba. So thank you everyone for being here on the panel. I think we recognized everyone, and it would be a little bit hard for them to join and say some words, but they do give their thanks. So if you could please move on to the questions to the panelists, that would be great. Just wanted to also highlight to the attendees that we do have a Q&A button. If you do press on it and just submit your questions so the panelists can answer them. Go ahead, Riva.
Okay, I'm trying to work the technology. Let me go. So, okay, this is a question for BridgeX. If I am sending Naira to an individual in Kenya, what is the mechanism to match the exchange rate between Nigeria and Kenya? And if that's baked into the cost being shown to the customer, how does that work? And do you have the capacity to do that now? And if not, what are the regulatory barriers? And Aloy, you have 1 minute. Over.
Yes, you can certainly do that. You simply visit us on the platform we run together with MTN, Momo PSP from Nigeria to other countries, and you simply swap your Naira for Kenyan shillings, and then you'll be able to make your transfer. We are also working on regulatory approvals in Ghana. You can do that today, but we are working on regulatory approvals in Kenya as in other African countries.
Okay, thanks, Aloy. I think I'm going to take the privilege of the chair and ask a question to Dr. Sakar. Dr. Sakar, I wanted to ask you, with the program that is being constituted in Angola, at the end of the month. Do you anticipate a conversation that will address the specific regulatory barriers, and are there mechanisms within NEPAD to be able to help address them? Over.
Thank you very much, Riva, for the question. Actually, despite the program is still tentative, but yes, the answer is yes. Actually, we plan to have a couple of sessions around the different stumbling blocks and barriers for the smooth payment system and smooth free movement of people and services across not only Lobito corridor, but across the whole continent. And actually, we do expect some key strong decisions and recommendations to be taken by our heads of state and government. That's why we leverage on the perspective of the private sector to pinpoint and highlight where exactly the challenges. And also, we do expect to have some exhibitions and deals room whereby investors can directly highlight the key recommendations and the issue that should be specifically addressed within specific countries or context from our heads of state and governments. I hope this answers your question.
It did. I think we just had another question. I'm going to throw it back to you, which is, what about the financial barriers? Not just the ICT and infrastructure barriers in terms of the ability for banking and the flow of banking across the corridor. Are you going to be addressing that?
Thank you very much for raising such a critical question. Actually, it's a good question, and I already mentioned in my opening statement, one of the expected outcomes or deliverables out of this summit is just to showcase clear bankable projects to make sure that the development partners, international financiers, and different development banks are able to raise the required funds. And actually, as you may be aware, and our audience are aware, this is the third version of this financing summit. The first two versions were held in Dakar, and this is the third one. And again, one of the expected deliverables is to come up with specific investment deals. So we don't want to keep just speaking about very ambitious statements about what should be done. We need to speak the reality. So we do expect also a specific number of investment deals to be arranged and done across the summit. So again, I would like to see this platform to encourage all our esteemed private sector and investors to showcase what are the bankable projects in the pipeline, and to what extent, as Luanda, on behalf of all the co-organizers of the Luanda Summit, how can we help them to reach out the gap, because I know sometimes reaching out to the right governmental officers is not an easy task. So, and again, leveraging on the mandate of Luanda, it's our role to support. And I guess there is no better opportunity than the Luanda Summit to see the presence of a significant number of heads of state and governments who are really committed to further avail conducive investment environment, facilitate the engagement with the relevant private sector, either in Africa or outside. So again, I would like just to take this opportunity to give an open call for all our investors just to prepare their own pipeline projects. And again, Luanda remains at their disposal to do whatsoever necessary in this regard.
Thank you so much. Now everyone's no longer shy and we're just being paraded with questions. So no more ability of the chair. Bosco, you have your hand up. I also, though, want, there's a Mr. Gabby of the Africa Prosperity Network is on. I wanted him to say a few words because they're going to be having a similar program in New York, but I don't know, do we, Habiba, have the ability to unmute people? I don't know what the rules of this are. Habiba?
I actually do.
Okay, so hold on. Let me please have Bosco jump in, and then if you could please unmute Mr. Gabby Ocheri for just a couple of minutes. A few people are trying. We have a few people trying to jump in. Hey, Bosco, over to you.
Thank you. I'll just take a half minute to just support what Dr. Mustafa was saying about what they are doing at NEPAD to be able to support cross-border transactions, and which are working on together. They have a system they're developing in a retail way, and they're trying to use our rails for that. So this, we are working seamlessly to be able, and this in our role, to be able to offer interoperability between different corridors and different regional payment systems. And then I just saw a question down in the line asking why we are looking at for the financial aspects in the Lobito corridor is very important. They are very important because we've realized that in the past, we do set up all this physical infrastructure for trade, but once it's not supported by the payment systems, by financial support or digitalization of payments, it doesn't prosper. So we need to focus on them in tandem. So that was just to answer one question that's in the question list. Thank you, Riva.
Yeah, thanks, Bosco. And I just want to say that PAPS has been working with a lot of the fintechs and the innovators to try to bring innovation into the system and connect all of the established corridors that have been built. The number of digital financial corridors that are built and are not communicating with one another is remarkable, and that's one of the challenges that we have. Hey, if you could unmute Gabby Ochere and just give 30 seconds so he could talk about the Africa Prosperity Network and how it is part of this continued conversation. So please, over, if Habiba, could you do that?
Yeah, Riva, I think he got disconnected. I'm sorry.
He got disconnected. Okay, no problem. So if he's gone,
with like the questions that we have.
it's okay. If I'll close it in the end. Lisa, a question over to you about U.S. policy and how is the Trump administration looking at facilitating the type of transactions that we're talking about? It's unclear. This questionnaire is saying, from what's been said, what the commitment of the Trump administration will be materially to these corridors. So I know that's a more than above your pay grade question, but it would be great if you could just give some guidance here in terms of what policy's been articulated.
Yeah, I really appreciate the president's very clear in his priorities. And, we're, as an agency, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, we're very aligned with the administration's priorities. So, for example, there have been a number of executive orders focusing on doing work in critical minerals, in energy dominance, and really a focus on the energy sector as well as AI. And that's been giving us direction in terms of where to engage. Digital infrastructure, which is the topic of what we're talking about in the Lobito corridor, remains a focus. And I know the State Department has put out a lot of helpful background as well on the Regional Economic Integration Framework and the Lobito corridor as well, which is available to reference publicly for you all if you'd like to look into this a bit more. But for us, we will continue to focus on the administration's priorities. And the Lobito corridor is a focus for our agency, where we're finding a lot of projects, really, looking for opportunities that align well with U.S. interests and U.S. companies, as well as supporting U.S. companies in the region. So we'll continue to look for projects in that space, and that's why, as mentioned at the top, I have colleagues in Kinshasa right now looking for opportunities and the region.
Ambassador Sharif, do you want to jump in here at all with any of these questions, just to comment on how they might be addressed in the context of the Luanda Summit?
Thank you, Riva. Thank you, Riva. As I have mentioned in my remarks, MMP actually is helping governments and businesses and international organizations navigate complexity and forging partnerships. So I believe out of our belief and understanding of the great potential of the Lobito corridor and the potential that Africa has got, this is one of the main reasons that we are really very excited in supporting in all means. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much, Ambassador. I had mentioned that Gabby Ocheri was going to come on. What he was going to mention, and this is just a question we got, is there any conversation ongoing next week in New York at UNGA on this conversation? And we'll put that in the information. The Africa Prosperity Network, which has been dealing with the issue of interoperability of mobile money. I think they say that Momo is the common currency across the continent. There's going to be a session in New York on Monday, and we'll go ahead and put it in the chat group because, again, the conversation is, we really want to supercharge this dialogue. Another question, I think this might go to Bosco or Lisa or Sakar, which is we have a fintech gentleman from Certipay in the DRC who is actually moving the mobile money and transactions across the DRC based in the Eastern Congo. And they, the question here is, we have the approvals that we need, but we don't have the financial liquidity. We don't see the investors who want to come in and help us build the backbone that we now have the approval to do. So I put that question even to our M&P colleagues as far as the access they have in MENA, et cetera, if how these people get access to the objectives. Turn that over to anyone who wants to take it and a bit of time.
So
I might just
everyone-
jump in and
Please go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna note I'm happy to connect offline if you're able to share my contact information because again we support projects at the early stage to help de-risk them. So happy to have a further dialogue on this offline.
Of course, thank you, Lisa. We'll definitely share your contacts with the person who asked the question. So in terms of access to finance and access to investment, like we are at MMP, we do provide assistance and guidance to startups and even local startups here in Egypt who want to reach out to investors or people who are going to support their project. So definitely we would be able to help with that. We will also give you our contacts. They are listed in the invite that was sent to you. So do please reach out. So from my side, I am the Director of Strategy and Growth, and I will report it back to our big FinTech and e-mobility team. We're very regional and we're very strong in the Africa region as well. So we would definitely be very happy to help with that.
Now, hey, Habiba, I think that gives me an opportunity as well to just talk about why this partnership, because one of the things you'll see, we have the NEPAD, we have a KRL here in Washington and also M&P in Cairo. M&P is has a base in Cairo, but their focus is engagement in sub-Saharan Africa and also getting investment from the Gulf states into sub-Saharan Africa. So they're here both as a convener, but also as a facilitator, recognizing, as we do in the US, that the US is going to have a few tools, Development Finance Corporation, EXIM, and USTDA, but the role of the US at this point is going to have to be to help draw in other money and other money in participation. And again, I think you make, Habiba, a good point. We'll make sure that everybody's contact information is there. Again, continuing the conversation, I would just say there's a program in New York. We'll share that. There's also going to be a continued conversation at the fall meetings of the IMF and the World Bank. Bosco Sababi will be part of that conversation. We're also hoping that that conversation moves it forward. So I want to just pause it there, see what our other questions are. Joe, have you pulled those up? Yeah.
You want to do that, Gabby?
That's Gabby, are you on? I'm sorry. Gabby, are you on? Because I thought you were off and you're on. Are you able to jump on? Is that yes? Okay.
Not
Okay.
there. So
Okay. So this is for John then, for Bosco. Does AfriExim envision structuring finance and de-risking mechanisms for the libido corridor to ensure sustainable private sector participation, particularly in logistics, mining, cross-border trade, while balancing development goals for Angola, Zambia, and the DRC? I know, Bosco, you're PAPS, but are you able to speak to that question?
Yes, Riva, thank you very much. I can speak to that question because we're part of African Bank, and African Bank supporting private sector as well as public in terms of trade. So definitely this is something that African Bank would be interested in.
We're having a tough time hearing you. Could you speak in or speak up?
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes, please. Now we can.
So does that mean I have to repeat everything I said from the beginning? Hello, you can hear me well?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So I said that PAPS is part of African Bank, so I'm able to say something about what the question is all about. Yes, the African Bank supports both private and public sector in terms of trade and also infrastructure that supports cross-border trade. So definitely that is something that African Bank would be interested in supporting you if you are involved in cross-border trade, exports or imports. African Bank will be able to support you. So get close to African Bank branch close to you, and they'll be able to support you.
Okay, I'm going to give Gabby one more try. Thank you for your patience. Gabby, if you're on, please jump in, talk about the New York program. Otherwise, we'll move on. And again, I apologize, Habiba. He's not on. Okay. All right. We tried. I can't see the backbone. Alloy, this is one of the issues. I only have the front interface. I can't see what's going on. So, so let me just then turn. He said that you have to be unmuted. Habiba, can you unmute?
Let me check. I cannot find his name in the list though. Is it G-O-D?
Okay, well, while we're waiting, because we're kind of running out of time, I have an interesting, can you unmute Habiba or no?
All right, let me check. I think, is it this one? G-O-D? Is that his name?
Yes, please.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, hi. Maybe a quick one. Sorry about the confusion. But first of all, I think
Hey, Gabby, just so we have about a minute, apologize. So over to you. I've done a little bit of preview. Over, please.
okay. Now, first of all, I think that this libido corridor is an amazing addition to our infrastructure. But a key thing is that it shouldn't just be a route for extraction, but for integration. And if we're going to do so, then we need to see how it can benefit SMEs and the rest of it. And I think that's where, if you like, the PAPs and the rest of them come in. So it's really important that we're having this conversation in how to connect this sort of railway infrastructure, road infrastructure, to digital infrastructure. So I think it's absolutely critical. And if I can just perhaps move on, I noticed you wanted me to mention about what is happening on Monday. We're having a conversation in New York at the Dentons. This is the Global Africa Forum, where we bring in global investors, global Africans or Africans in the diaspora who are interested in investing in the Africa that we want. And the conversation will be Africa's response to what you may call the terrorist war that is ongoing. I think the key thing is that Africa should see this as an opportunity. We're getting support to build important corridors like the libido corridor. But then what is it that we can do to benefit better from it, which is how do we increase intra-African trade? We're looking at a market of 1.5 billion. And if we can see to it that it is not just a route for exports, as had been over 100 years in terms of how you get a copper and cobalt out, but it can be also a route for intra-African trade. And I think that's where systems such as PAPS and what Bridge and others are doing should be encouraged. And let's see how the digital trade protocols that AU passed can be better leveraged and quickly. Because by 2030, according to the Africa's policy on digital transformation strategy, by 2030, we must be connected digitally. And if we're going to do so, then how do we connect that infrastructure to road and transport infrastructure like we have in terms of the Lobido corridor? If you look at it, let me just to
Hey,
sum up.
Gabby, we have unfortunately we have 2 minutes left. We'll make sure
Okay.
that the information for the conference is there, and apologize for not knowing how to unmute people. I'll work on that. I don't know if any of our panelists want to just quickly respond to Gabby's point. So I'd leave that over. I don't know, Ambassador Sharif, Dr. Sakar, I think one of the points that Gabby has made is that we have this AU digital protocol, and we have these documents and conversations about connectivity and breaking barriers, but still you can't passport a license between Nairobi and Tanzania, or you can't move back and forth. And so I think that's one of the main points he was making. I don't know if you want to jump in here for a minute or so. I know we have to wrap up.
I believe Dr. Mustafa Saar would be the most suitable to give us an idea about perhaps the future of more freedom of movement in Africa within the African countries. I believe this back to you, Dr. Mustafa.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Sheikh. Actually, I fully agree with what mentioned by Gabi. Actually, the willingness and the political willingness, I put it that way, is already there. It's clear by the number of the signatories countries for the ECFTA. Actually, based on the latest info, we do have 49 member states of the ECFTA. So I guess the political willingness is out of question. What is really missing, in my humble opinion, is to translate this political willingness into reality, into projects on the ground, because we all agree that we shouldn't stick to Lobito corridor and other corridors as just a transport route passing across a couple of countries. We need to transform it into a real development corridor, if I may say. In doing so, we need to make sure that we need to identify a number of feasible, doable project that could be implemented on the ground. Because frankly speaking, all what we do expect from our principals, I mean heads of state and government, just the political willingness. They are ready to do whatever is necessary to transform Lobito and other corridors into reality. But what is really missing, how to do so? I guess our assignment is to identify a number of bankable projects that can engage with all relevant stakeholders across all the countries, with a particular focus on SMEs, which actually account for more than 80% of the economic activities across sub-Saharan Africa. So this is our role. And also one of the key issues I would like to highlight is that projects, I mean cross-border projects, are very fantastic in terms of the overarching goal. But one of the key failure factors is that the inability of the project owners or champion to transform these noble ideas into bankable projects. So what is really the key issues I would like to bring to the table as one of the key recommendations that we can focus on is we need to avail the technical support to the identified or prioritized cross-border projects to be transferred from pre-feasibility or from just an idea to bankable projects, whereby we can submit it to international financiers and development partners. Because as you may be aware, we do have a very fantastic program called Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa. It entails more than 100 noble ideal cross-border projects. But when you see in details, you will find most of these projects are stuck in the pre-feasibility stage because the inability to avail the technical and the financial resources required to complete all the preparatory studies, including visibility, socio-impact assessment studies. So I guess we may, through the collaboration with all relevant stakeholders, identify what are the key projects that can transform Lobito from just road to a real development corridors. We can also work together to avail the required financial and technical resources to transform these projects into bankable one. Then definitely Agency-NEPAD
Thanks,
with
Doctor. Thank you so much. I think that's a key point. It's also a key takeaway in every conversation we're having in terms of the ability to have these bankable projects collect the type of financing they need, whether they're digital or otherwise. I think we have a colleague from M&P who wants to close out. We're 3 minutes over. What's amazing is we've had no attrition. We started at like 70 plus, we're still at like 69 plus, and we're going over. That shows the level of interest in this project. So maybe our M&P colleagues could just kind of jump in and do a final pitch for what's happening in Luanda to make sure we can get as much broad support and participation as possible.
Riva, before that, can I just have 30 seconds or less? To address Dr. Bakar, Dr. Sakar, I'm from the private sector. The innovation that you're looking for is there, the capacity is there. What we need from our multinational organizations in Africa is the ability. One of the biggest problems that we are confronting Africa is regulatory bottlenecks. For us in fintech, we have the technology, we have the know-how, we have the means. But there are 54 countries in Africa, and that means 54 different regulatory frameworks. If we can enable us to transport, a very simple idea. If I register a company and qualify in Ghana, for example, if the Ghana Central Bank has licensed me to do something, that license should be transported also to another country. That's, my takeaway from this.
No,
and allow us to do that. That's all.
Aloy, thank you so much. And I think just to Dr. Sakar's point, and maybe I think what we're hearing from Aloy and from other investors as well is they say that the political will is there and there are no bankable projects, but I think the reality on the ground is that the political will does not always translate into ease of doing business. And we have the bumps and bruises to prove that, I think, as Aloy is saying. I think over to our M&P colleague to wrap up, and I want to apologize to the group for interrupting, but it's impossible not to because we have such a short period of time. Over to M&P, and then we'll do all of the follow-up virtually if any of our panelists want to jump in. Over, please.
Thank you so much, Riva. So this is Mustafa Moharram. I'm the chairman of M&P, and very happy to see this the success of this event, of course, in partnership with KRL and the Luanda and of course our colleagues from the USTDA and from other Pan-African organizations. Again, let me repeat basically what Dr. Mustafa said right now. Of course, bankable projects are very important, and we need to bring basically some of those to Luanda, and we need to leverage those projects for advocacy. And I believe this is going to be very important to basically to translate the momentum that we are going to take with actually the projects that we are going to bring to Luanda to policy reforms that are needed basically as part of the Lobito corridor to make sure that those actually those investments are able to materialize and to ease of business, as Riva was saying. So this is essentially Lobito cannot only be an investment corridor without having the right policy dialogue with the three, of course, countries and beyond, with different, actually, with the investment community to make sure that those investments are able to materialize on the ground. Whether we're talking about fintech, whether we're talking about basically payments, whether we're talking about technology, all of those actually industries are highly regulated. And I think we need to go to Luanda with a very clear policy agenda that we could actually push, of course, with the leadership of the governments of the different, of course, different governments are involved. So as part of this exercise, Riva, what I would propose is, in preparation for Luanda, we will be holding a number of workshops to make sure that we are gathering recommendations from different investors that are interested in Lobito, but they're seeing basically regulatory and policy issues that needs to be addressed, and making sure that we are able to provide those recommendations to national governments as part of our participation in Luanda. Finally, and not to take,
yeah. Sorry.
yes,
No,
not to take
go.
basically. So I think building this actually policy agenda for Lobito would be very important and would be a great proposition that together, Riva, and of course with our different colleagues from the investment community, would be able to actually to champion it as part of the Luanda Summit. We will be providing, together with KRL, as Ambassador Sharif mentioned, 2 platforms in Luanda, which would be very important. The main session that will address the digital corridor, and I would like to thank Dr. Mustafa Sa'ar, but because of course this is done in partnership with UDA-NEPAD. So MNP, KRL, UDA-NEPAD is organizing the main session at the Luanda Summit that will be actually discussing, of course, the digital corridor. So any recommendations, we will be able to take it to this main session and hopefully do some good advocacy work around it, as well as a high-level dinner, of course, with the 3 ministers of ICT from Congo, from Zambia, and of course from Angola, to make sure that we are able to network with them in person and of course push for our policy recommendations and be able to take this dialogue forward. Again, thank you very much for this opportunity, and very glad to see that this event is succeeding, and that you're all interested, of course, in this great topic, and very much looking forward to see you all in Luanda very soon.
I think that's the perfect close. The pitch to Luanda, but also what you just said is that these policy issues that are strangling the ability to trade, to come to scale, to move money, etc., that we should be a vehicle to be able to get that information. We've had 70+ people on that call to get that information before AU and NEPAD, and to be able to have a real conversation and preparation. So we're not just throwing information out there, we're actually solving problems. So in that, I'm just gonna applaud all of our group and patience, and thank you. We're 11 minutes over, but it just shows that we're so grateful for everyone. We'll do all of the follow-up. We'll get people's contact information through Habiba. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.